How do you foster your teens to have friendships outside of the home, and what do you do if you're not sure the friendships are edifying and good for them? Okay, the first part of the question is an easy one to answer. And that is, we have always prioritized our kids' friendships. I think if we're going to be homeschooling, then they need to have some great friends. Welcome to Our Life Homeschooling. My name is Sherry, Christian, wife to my high school sweetheart Nelson, and thankful mom to 10 incredible kids. I'm the author of the blog and YouTube channel Our Life Homeschooling, where I share homeschooling encouragement for everyday moms. I believe that motherhood is ministry, and homeschooling is simply an extension of parenting. My passion is to cheer on other moms who are at home doing the most important work of all, raising the next generation for the glory of God. Hi everyone, welcome back to Our Life Homeschooling. I'm going to be answering some questions today that I received on YouTube 2 weeks ago. On Instagram and YouTube, I asked you all to send me your homeschooling questions. I got so many that I decided to make 2 podcasts out of it. And so today I'm going to be sorting through the questions that were asked more specifically on YouTube. So if this was you, hopefully we can get to your question today. All right, this question is, let me first say I am inspired by your graceful way of parenting and homeschooling. My question is, how do you balance chores and getting your homeschooling done in a happy way? I struggle to keep the balance, a happy one and equal one. How many hours a day do you spend per child teaching, and how do you remain joyful through it all? Or do you also have days off where you just can't cope with it all and call it a day? Okay, so the first question, thank you very much for your kind words. The first question is, how do you balance chores and getting your homeschooling done in a happy way? Well, first of all, when we do chores, we break it up into zones. So, and this is something we've done over time. It's not something that we just started all at once. It was a process, and it took a lot of time to kind of get that down. And when I say time, I mean months and years. It took time to develop it. But I broke our house down into zones, and we've gone over what they need to do for that zone to be complete. Initially, I put each zone on an index card, and on the index card, I wrote everything that needed to be done in that area for it to be finished. So this has worked really well for us. And one thing I am learning, the more kids we have, is that it's a lot more about delegation. So I'm always working, but it's a lot of just following up behind them, checking on their chores. And initially that does just take a lot more time. And I think it's something that's worth focusing on because the kids get better at the chores over time and you don't have to do as much checking. How many hours a day do you spend per child teaching? I am teaching throughout the day sporadically, depending on how much my kids need me. I think the question is more, how much does each child spend? And really this is different depending on the age of the child. So my younger kids, in kindergarten, it might be a half an hour to an hour where they actually spend doing their independent work. Of course, they're there for morning time, they're there for read aloud time, they're there for everything else that we do together as a group. And then for our older kids, the day is longer. It will probably be more like 4 hours for a high school student. It's really hard to put a number on it because it's become such a lifestyle for us that it's kind of hard to just put it in a box like that. And then how do you remain joyful through it all? Well, I don't always remain joyful. I wish I could say that I do, but I definitely am relying on the Lord each day for grace and strength to help me through and for wisdom. And yeah, some days I do just call it a day. We just stop, we do what's best for the family, and we start again the next day. Next question. I'm in my small children era. 2 second graders and a kindergartner and a toddler. Backdrop, my kids are very active and outdoorsy kinds of learners. I have a hard time encouraging reading and writing. My kids love math, but language arts is a struggle. What to do with level 2 kiddos who resist reading and writing? Help, I've tried to switch things up. We did the good and the beautiful, we did master books, neither of which my kids enjoyed the process. For this, I would say if you have a reluctant reader, I would definitely try doing living books, try picture books, and try doing just little chunks throughout the day. So in morning time, read something that's fun and enjoyable for 10 minutes. After lunch, read a little bit. Read just a little bit, even at dinner time or after dinner time. Maybe at bedtime as they're falling asleep, have an audiobook that they're listening to. This is something my kids absolutely loved when they were younger. So you don't want to fire hose, just, give them way too much, but just little chunks of time of reading and then just wait. It's a process. It takes time. It's not something that, I have a reluctant reader who's younger than 8, but I'm just consistently believing in the process, knowing that if he is listening to books a lot, it's going to come. It just takes time. The next question is, I have a 9-year-old girl who would rather have her nose in a book, watching a movie, or playing with Legos and building a fantasy world. How to help her get motivated or focused to finish her lessons? Sometimes I'm having to redirect her with what feels like every 5 minutes. She's not struggling with the subject, she just doesn't want to do it. It's like that with any subject. Sometimes she likes time to herself to see how fast she can do the work. And other times I'm able to give her an incentive, but I run out of ideas when she loses interest. I would say every child has something that motivates them. And I would say be a student of your child and find what is a motivating factor. Some kids are motivated by competition. My one son was motivated by competing against himself. He wanted to know how quickly he could get this work done, so he would set a timer and he would always try to beat it. And also, I would say, I think human beings in general are averse sometimes to any kind of work. So if that is what's going on here, I think that's a separate issue. And I would put the schoolwork away and focus on that character quality of diligence, of doing things that you don't want to do, of delayed gratification, all those kinds of things. I would make that a priority and then move on to the schoolwork. I'd love to see a step-by-step of one child's day through the day to see what they do while they're waiting for you, what time they get one-on-one time, and what time altogether. I'm struggling to get a flow in my homeschool with multiple kids, and it's hard to tell from disjointed video clips what kids do between a lesson and getting called back, etc. When you plan your schooling, do you work it that everyone has planned independent work while you work one-on-one with others, or is it just a muddle and it works out? This muddle seems less enjoyable for me as the mom. So when I do my videos, you see clips here and there of our day, but obviously there's a lot that's missed. For the most part, as soon as my kids are able, I move them towards independence. So when I'm working with one child on something, the other kids are doing something that they're able to do on their own. Now, occasionally it does happen that they all need me at once. And so when that happens, we have to just slowly take it one at a time. Usually whoever is the most urgent, I take care of that child first, and I look at the other kids and say, find something on your checklist, and usually I know what it is, so I can tell them, go work on this subject or go work on this activity, because that's something they can do all by themselves until I'm free to get to the next one. So I guess I could show a child going through the day. That would be a completely different video and probably one that would be hard for me to put together. For you to be able to see what one child does all day. But they really just move through their checklist and I don't know, somehow we make it all work. For the most part, when it's time for their independent work, they just go off and they're able to do that. And you asked if it's a muddle. Sometimes it is a muddle. Sometimes it's crazy. And yet it all has turned out. And I think my kids have had a great education. There are just days where it's just really messy. And if you show up here, it wouldn't seem like this grand thing that it really has turned out to be. In that moment, it looks messy. But over time, I've been able to see how this is a great education. The kids have plenty of free time. Sometimes I'll have them work in a room by themselves, and that just really helps them. So sometimes, yes, it's a muddle sometimes, but overall, I can see the day-to-day muddle sometimes, but look back also and see the big picture. What are some handicrafts you started with your boys when they were young? I noticed your girls crocheting and wondered if your boys do the same activities and enjoy them. Okay, my older boys, I actually did teach them how to crochet a chain. That lasted for a little period of time and they never picked it up again. But they were our oldest. I wanted to show them some kind of handicraft, and that worked at the time. Most of all, my boys did a lot of taking things apart and putting them back together. whether that was Legos, we took out a dishwasher and just let the boys take it apart, an old VCR. So that's a little different than handicrafts, but it's what came naturally to them and what they really enjoyed doing. So we just did that. When do you start giving your kids serious house chores? I'm not sure if my 5-year-old is too young. Anytime I tell her it's cleanup time, she groans and throws a fit. I don't remember encountering this with my older 2 children. Each child is so different. So it's like you get one figured out and then this new one comes and you just have to try some different tactics and figure out their personality. As soon as our kids are capable of doing simple things, wiping down a counter or emptying the trash, so probably like around age 3, we bring them along with us and start teaching them chores. And usually for us, this looks like a younger child helping an older child. So I'll just have my 3-year-old assigned to a different older child each day to be their little helper. And the little one always loves it. They love feeling like they're big and doing something that the big kids are doing. And the older kids, actually, my kids have loved having a younger sibling come along. They love teaching them how to do things. So that's the way we've handled it here in our home. How do you keep your kids focused on their own tasks, schoolwork with so many people in the room? My kids seem to be focused on what everyone else is doing. We do science, Bible, and history together, but even if I'm just teaching a phonics concept to a child, one child will be paying attention to me rather than their schoolwork. There's no really easy answers for this. I would say each of our kids has a desk in their bedroom, so if they want to go away and do some work quietly on their own, they do. And then the way our house is laid out, we do have just different pockets of places throughout the house where they could go. I would probably, if you're working with a child that's doing like a phonics lesson and then another child can't focus, I would probably, if that other child is working on something that they can do by themselves, I would have them go in another room and get it done, just so that they can really concentrate and it doesn't take them as much time to do it. Next question is, how do you schedule your days, weeks, year? How much detail do you include? So at the beginning of a school year, I sit down with each of my kids. I look at where they are and where we like to have them at the end of the year, and we put together a checklist. So, and this is a checklist that they refer to throughout the year. So they're not, I am not planning out every week for them. They have a basic checklist. I don't plan for them to get to the end of, for example, level 3 at the end of 3rd grade. They're where they're at, and they continue making progress each day. And so when we make this checklist, I'll usually write out for them how many pages in this subject to do every day, or how much they kind of get an idea of how much to do every day so that they know how to progress. But I'm not planning out their week for them. I used to do that years ago when my kids were all younger, but then it became way too much for me to try to do that every week, to sit down and write out a week of lesson plans for each child. So the checklist has really replaced that and works better for us. Next question, do you offer screen time, and how does it change with ages? Well, I'll say first of all, I did a video that you can search for how we handle screen time, and that really lays out exactly how we handle screens. So far, we have screen time divided into 2 categories, which would be, the first is like entertainment type of screens, which would be Friday night movie nights or video games where they play on an iPad or on a computer. And then the other time of screen time would be using the computer for educational tools. On our kids' checklist, I do have certain subjects that they're using the computer for, but I do try to limit it so that they're not doing a ton of time, that they're not in front of a screen for all day, because that's just not really how I want to spend our time. But as far as the entertainment type of screens, for the most part, we just have screen days and non-screen days. And on those screen days, each child is given a certain amount of time that they can use screens. And it's we adjust the time based on their developmental level or their age. So that's kind of the basics of how we handle screens. If you want to learn more, you definitely want to go and see that video. How do you handle the garden work, which changes throughout the year with the weather, and maintain your homeschool routine? Okay, this is a good question because although maybe some people would call us year-round homeschoolers, we technically do keep our bookwork to the traditional calendar, September through May. And I do this because of all the garden and the gardening work that we do outside. We do, each year we have a big garden and we do a lot of canning, freezing. We have chickens. We raise all of the chicken that we eat for the whole year during the summer. And then we also raise our own pigs. We raise some extra pigs in exchange for beef with a friend of mine. So all of that takes a lot of work in the summer, which for me, I consider this is all homeschooling. Our kids are beside us. They help us with a lot of the work that we do outside. So the learning doesn't stop. It just pivots. But that's the reason for us doing our book work during the traditional school days or school months. That doesn't mean we're not reading at all during this time. I usually still am reading at least one book during the summer in the afternoon. How do you foster your teens to have friendships outside of the home, and what do you do if you're not sure the friendships are edifying and good for them? Okay, the first part of the question is an easy one to answer. And that is, we have always prioritized our kids' friendships. This is one of the top priorities for us. I think if we're going to be homeschooling, then they need to have some great friends. And so this is a reason that we're part of a co-op. Not everybody is part of a co-op, and maybe with what you have on your plate, those of you that don't want to be in a co-op, maybe with what you have on your plate, you don't need something like that. For us, this has always been a good fit with the circumstances that we have in our life. And my kids' closest friends have come from our co-op. It's a very vibrant community. Kids are always having birthday parties, summer pool parties, movie nights. In fact, sometimes you almost have to limit what we can do because they could just be doing things all the time. But that is something that we've made a priority. And I think when your kids have maybe some friends that aren't a good influence, first of all, most importantly, we would be praying about this and asking for the Lord's direction. But secondly, this is a good chance to have conversations with your kids. And we've had some conversations with our kids about why we've made some of the decisions that we've made as a family and why we feel this way. And, not everyone may feel the same way or have the same position, but that's okay. They can have it's okay to have an opinion about something and to not be the same as everyone. What exactly do you do for morning time? Over the years, I have put together some of the things that I do for morning time. I have it in a morning time notebook that you can get on the blog, ourlifehomeschooling.com, if you want to take a look at what's inside of that. But that is pretty much everything that I do for morning time. It's reading the Bible, memory work, it's composer study, artist study, geography. We do poetry, Shakespeare, all the subjects that are best learned in a group. That's what we do for morning time. And then we always finish it off with World Watch, which is a news program from a Christian perspective. It's one of my kids' favorite parts of the day. So we finish off with that. Are there any changes you begin to make in middle school to better prepare your kids for high school? When our oldest hit middle school, my mindset completely changed. I cared less and less about the curriculum and more about our relationships and our family culture. So I was not as rigorous in the high school years. I'm still not that way because forming good relationships with my kids in the very little time that we have left with them is just really high on the list. So that's the way it changes. I want them to have more time for their interests. So that's a second thing that we prioritize. Do you struggle with attention spans or unwillingness? And yes, that is something that any of the struggles you guys have had, I'm pretty sure we've had them here. If a child is unwilling to do something, this is something that I would consider to be a character issue. And so at that point, all of the academic work is kind of backseat for me, and I would stop all that and really target some of those character issues. And then short attention spans, I would say, give them lots of breaks. Let them go outside. Let them move around. This is the benefit we have as homeschoolers, is that we don't have to do everything a certain way or everything in the way that's good for the group. We can tailor it to the individual. Well, I hope this has been helpful, and hopefully I was able to get to most of your questions. Thank you so much for sending them to me. Since I received so many, I will definitely be doing another one of these Q&A type of podcasts. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time on the Our Life Homeschooling podcast.